Good morning everybody, it's Brett here, Lionheart84, your UK based exotic fruit growing enthusiast. I just wanted to do, it's Sunday the 27th of October and it's a beautiful day at the moment, glorious sunshine, so I'm sorry if the camera's a little bit funny with the sun shining on it. It's about 7 degrees centigrade here actually, but it's warm enough to sit outside in short sleeves because there's very little breeze, so it's not actually cold. And if you're in America, that's about 45 Fahrenheit, so a typical late October day. They're promising colder temperatures for the next few evenings, and I guess we might get some frosts. But I just thought I'd do a short video about plant labelling and systems, some of the ideas I use for labelling my plants. Now obviously I know there's lots of gardeners out there that have no interest in labelling their plants at all, which is absolutely fine because they can look a bit messy on the plants, to be honest. But if you are someone who likes to keep tabs on what you've got, it can prove very handy, and quite often the labels that come on the plants are not very good quality, which I'll show in a minute, and don't last very long. I mean, obviously it's fine if you've got one apple tree or one fig tree or one persimmon, then frankly you don't need to label it, or even if you've got a couple, because you're probably going to remember what they are, and it's not really an issue if you don't know the names, because you'll see when they fruit. But when you start to run into problems is if you've got sort of 5 or 6 figs. I mean, I've seen people on some of the YouTubers who grow figs have got 200 varieties. Well, obviously whether you've got 5 varieties or 200 varieties, you really need to keep tabs on them, because you're just not going to remember which ones are which unless you're an absolutely genius at remembering what you've put where. And in my case I've got probably about 13 or 14 different persimmons, so it'll be handy for me in the future when they get larger, and some of them are going to be very similar looking. It'd be quite nice to know which varieties of which, so I can remember, you know, which ones, when I'm trying the fruit, what comes off what. Now, to be fair, most of the plants when you buy them, I mean, some nurseries don't even bother labelling, in which case you want to get a label on them straight away, but quite a lot of the nurseries, when you buy the plants, use what I call very poor quality papery labels. Now this is typical of the sort of thing I'm talking about. This is a very cheap papery label, and when it came, it's fine. I can still at the moment see that that's a Ziziphus Lee, that's a Jujube, and the variety is Lee. But as you can see, it's already starting to get extremely faded now, so it's not going to be long before I'm able to see that anymore. And this is even more typical. Now this label here, no name on it anymore at all. They've obviously used a pen that wasn't a very good quality waterproof pen in the court, and I've had this plant 1 year. This came from a nursery called Penard Plants, and I've had this plant 1 year and the writing's already completely disappeared from the label. Unfortunately I put a plastic label in the pot, so, and I know from the process of elimination which particular plant that is. But I normally use 2 different types of labelling, which you can buy quite cheaply. Now, if you're going to put labels in the pots, you can't go too far wrong with these little white plastic labels here, and they do have a hole on them, so you can obviously put a little bit of wire on them and put them and tie them to branches if you want to as well. So, and when you buy a set, I think I bought a packet of 100 labels, they come with a waterproof pen, and if you look at that there, it says lychee on. I probably wrote that one about a year ago, so this is quite a good quality pen. It stayed on, but you do have to keep an eye on them, because even that waterproof ink will fade over a period of time, so it's worth keeping an eye on it. And of course, if they're in their pots or labels, they can get washed away or lost or pulled out by birds. The other issue I have with these sort of labels is obviously they work based on this system here, and they normally come on the main stem when you get the plants, but obviously after a relatively short period of time the plant's going to get too big and it's simply going to break the label and snaps it off. So I've decided to invest in a more long-term system of labelling. This is going to be might be a bit shiny if the sun catches on it. Now you can buy, and I know you can get them in America because I know a lot of people use them, and I bought these in the UK. I bought a packet of, I think it was 50 aluminium labels which come with these wires, and I think they cost about something like about £5, so about $7. Now these should last almost indefinitely, and when you pull them, when you take them out of the box, obviously they're just, let me get one out and show you, they just come as an absolutely plain aluminium tag. They may eventually corrode, but basically they'll should last for years and years. And you simply write on them with a reasonably sharp object. I mean, I've used a pen nib, but obviously you could use a cocktail stick, a fork, possibly a knife, a screwdriver. You can use almost anything to write on them. So they're reasonably attractive when they're hanging from the trees. I mean, it might not work for some people because they don't want labels on their plants, but in the case of mine, with as I said, I've got about 14 different persimmons. That's a fig label, that's Rouge de Bordeaux, but it's going to be a lot panache, but it's going to be much easier for me to keep tabs on the plants, and these labels should really last a good 10 years. And you can always go out if they get, you know, if someone rubs them and they get a little bit faint, the lettering, it's actually just an indentation on the aluminium, so you can always go over them in 2 or 3 years time. But that's my little tip for labelling my particular plants in the garden. I find these aluminium labels are great. You can't write too much on them, obviously not huge, but it's enough to write the names of most plants. I mean, I think I've got a few. Let me have a look, that's a persimmon one. No problem putting Rojo Brillant on that, plenty of room. I mean, you could even write persimmon as well if you wanted to, but obviously I do know which ones are persimmons and which ones are mulberries and which ones are figs. What's very hard to tell on some of them is the difference between the different persimmons. But anyway, that's my preference now in labelling. I've just bought these, so I'm going to label some plants today before the paper labels or plastic labels break off. But I just thought that might be useful for some people who aren't sure what to use for labelling their plants. That's it. It's not a problem if you've got one fig. You're not going to forget that it's a brown turkey, but if you've got 4 or 5 similar looking plants of the same variety, you might decide you want to label them so you can remember what they are in the future. Anyway, that's a short video finished. Thanks for watching. Brett out now. I shall catch you in the next video. Should be making a couple today. Excuse me, my bit of dust in my throat, but I'll make the most of the weather today and see if I can get some videoing done, and I'll speak to you all later. Thanks a lot. Brett out.